Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin by standing and singing together, please?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome here to First Unitarian Church of Portland. We're a multi-generational community that strives to put love at the center. Whether you're here for the first time or whether you've been here for many, many years, you are welcome here in this sanctuary or joining us online. We're so glad you're here. If you are new among us, I would love to invite you to a welcome circle, as this is a chance for us to get to know you. We'll gather just to my left in the side gallery. There's a welcome circle sign. We'd love to meet you and see what questions you have about the church. So if you're new, join me and some of our folks from our membership team following the service. And as we do every Sunday, we'll have a social hour right below us in Fuller Hall after the service. And we are in the holiday season, and so there's a lot going on here at the church. Right after the service today, we'll have a junior Christmas pageant put on by our kindergarten class. If you're lacking cuteness in your season, this is the chance to fill that void. That will happen right after the service next door in our Elliott Chapel. Next door to that, in our Buchanan reception space, will be our Alliance Bake Sale and Holiday Goods Sale. If you missed it last Sunday, it's happening again today. That is also next door. And we're heading into the season of holiday services. This Friday evening at 7 p.m. will be our annual solstice service in our Elliott Chapel. Next Sunday, December 22nd, our service will feature our annual Christmas pageant, And this is an exceptional one. This is our 100th anniversary of our Christmas pageant. So we will be celebrating that next Sunday in this service. And after the service, we invite you to bring some baked goods. We're going to have a baked goods share following the service next Sunday. And on Christmas Eve, we will have two services, one at 5 p.m. and one at 8 p.m. Both will be candlelight services. The 5 o'clock service will be especially geared towards families and children, but everyone is welcome at both services, 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. A note that for the next 2 Mondays, we'll continue our Lenten Matin series, 9 o'clock on Monday on Zoom. You can find the link in this week's e-news. And you can look at the welcome desk. There's a flyer with all of those dates on them. I know I just shared a lot of information. And throughout this season, our 13 Salmon Shower Project is taking collecting goods for the folks we serve in our 13 Salmon Shower Project, essential clothing for our guests. What's particularly needed is waterproof winter coats, multi-packs of undershirts, men's boxer briefs, and sports bras, as well as adult waterproof winter gloves and warm beanie hats. All of those have been requested by our guests. These can be delivered to the Giving Tree out here in our lobby or next door in Buchanan, and we'll be doing that through this month of December. You can see more information in this week's front steps. With all of that, welcome everyone. We're so glad you're here. Let's take time now to greet one another. Reverend Alison will light our chalice this morning. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
Our call to worship this morning is our Advent candle lighting. Having lit the candle for hope and the candle for peace, today we move towards joy. We light a candle for joy, for life is growing and so is love. It flickers, jumps and dances, smokes and raises prayers up to the sky. May we make room in our lives for holy play, to be able to imagine the broken made whole once more. Yes. There's something about bells. It's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. And I want folks to know who are newer. There are a couple of bell ringers up here that have been ringing bells in this church since they were quite young. So we welcome new bell ringers and lifelong bell ringers here. Let us join together in our responsive reading, and I invite you to rise in body or in spirit. To be of the earth by John Sues. To be of the earth is to know the restlessness of being a seed, the darkness of being planted, the struggle toward the light, the pain of growth into the light, the joy of bursting and bearing fruit, the love of being food for someone, the scattering of your seeds, the decay of the seasons, the mystery of death, and the miracle of birth. And let us join in singing our doxology.
It's our practice here at First Unitarian to share our offering each week with a community organization in concert with our own church mission. For December, we're sharing our plate with Aliento, a community organization in Phoenix that believes in transforming trauma into hope and action with dreamers, undocumented students, and mixed status families. In late October, our First Unitarian Church delegation had the privilege of canvassing alongside teens and young adults from Aliento to oppose Arizona's draconian anti-immigrant proposition. In the wake of the passage of that proposition and in the outcome of the federal elections, they write, Aliento will continue to advocate for the rights of our undocumented, DACA, and mixed status families. Know that you are not alone. Aliento was created to nurture human potential regardless of immigration status. To give, you can give by the QR code that will appear shortly on the screen if you're at home and here in person, and our ushers will come by shortly. Thank you for your generosity that sustains the mission of this congregation. Every Sunday, we make space for the concerns of our community life here in the service. You're welcome to light candles of intention in one of our galleries. You can write down a prayer request, or online you can send an intention to prayer@firstunitarianportland.org. Last Sunday, we mentioned the death of Gordon Ware that had just happened, and I want you to bring you a little more information about Gordon today. Gordon died on December 8th after a lengthy struggle with Alzheimer's disease. He was 83 years old. Gordon was a physicist, an architect, and an artist. Even after he lost the ability to speak, he continued to express himself, including through painting up until his last weeks of life. We hold Gordon's wife, Jean Kemp-Ware, and their daughter and grandson in our prayers today. And a reminder that a memorial service will be held for longtime member Warren Bacon this coming Tuesday, December 17th at 11 o'clock in our Elliott Chapel. Warren died on November 2nd at the age of 87. Warren served the church in many ways, including as a lay minister and as our head usher. His memorial service will be on Tuesday. Will you join me now in prayer? Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and of no name at all, hear our prayers. Be with us, Spirit, in this season and all that it brings, this time of waiting, this time of preparing, this time of remembering, this time of joy, this time of sadness, this time of hope, too. Soon we will mark this time of turning with the longest night and the shortest day, with what is hidden, with what might be emerging. Help us to pay attention, Spirit, to the way that in the dark, the most subtle presence of light helps us to see what is before us. Be with us, Spirit, as we find our way in this season. Help us as to know how it is that we can bear witness against hate, against so much that would divide us. In these days of cold and rain, help us to recognize our siblings who have the least, those without shelter, those who may be struggling to find hope. Help us to be generous. Help us to be kind. Help us to be forgiving to ourselves and to others. In this season, help us to see clearly that we might, each of us and all of us, put love at the center. So be it. Amen. Let's be together now for a few moments of silence. Let's remain seated as we sing our next hymn together. Our reading this morning is by Frederick Lucien Hosmer, a 19th and early 20th century Unitarian minister. The Mystery of God. O thou, in all thy might so far, in all thy love so near, beyond the range of sun and star, and yet beside us here, what heart can comprehend thy name, or searching find thee out, who art within, a quickening flame, a presence round about? Yet though I know thee but in part, I ask not, Lord, for more. Enough for me to know thou art, to love thee and adore. O sweeter now than aught besides, the tender mystery that like a veil of shadow hides the light I may not see. The dearer than all things I know is childlike faith to me that makes the darkest way I go an open path for thee.
There is a story told about the child of a rabbi who frequently spent time wandering in the woods. At first, his father let him wander, but over time, he became concerned. The woods were dangerous. The father did not know what lurked there. He decided to discuss this matter with his child. He took him aside and said, "You know, I have noticed that you walk each day into the woods. I wonder, why do you go there?" The boy said to his father, "I go there to find God." "That is a very good thing," the father replied gently. "I'm glad you're searching for God. But my child, don't you know that God is the same everywhere?" "Yes," the boy said, "but I am not." We encounter moments and places in our lives that transcend time and space. This is, of course, the ultimate reality of existence. However, most of the time, we cannot experience this. We perceive the world through the limits of our five senses. We know with our eyes and have lost our inner vision. We hear with our ears and have lost the sound of our inner call. We touch with our fingertips and have lost confidence in the feeling of our intuition. In our tradition, it is the transcendentalists like Ralph Waldo Emerson who taught us that words and texts are only traces of the experiences of the communion, the ecstasy, the depths plumbed by the prophets and people who have come before us. It was Emerson who said to cast behind you all conformity and to acquaint yourself at first hand with the deity. Experiences of intimacy and ultimacy of the divine must be ours in the here and the now, lest the fruit of the Spirit rot and the seeds decay. Like the boy walking into the depth of the woods, we are invited to open to the mysteries of all existence and to rediscover them for ourselves. Ours is a faith without certainty. It isn't enough to simply inherit the wisdom of old. Rather, it is up to each one of us to experience, imagine, to reorient towards what we discover to be holy, ultimate, and true. We are all newborn prophets. While I don't resonate with the idea that God is incarnate only in Jesus, I do resonate with the idea that holiness, goodness, and truth do have the potential to be incarnate in every child, in every potential prophet. If the mystery of Orthodox Christianity in this season of Advent is how God can be both fully divine and also fully human in an infant lying in the manger, then it could be deemed all the more mysterious to believe that every child carries the spark of the divine. Yet, in essence, this is what we tend to affirm in our tradition. Whether we say we are all children of God or the more humanist expression, we are all inherently worthy. The space for mystery, the space for uncertainty is what allows the spaciousness for the breadth of the diversity held within our religious tradition. Ours is a faith without certainty, in contrast to traditions who claim to know the mind of God and claim that all truth is summed up within the borders of their particular brand of worship. And in the season ahead, we need people who are not so certain about God, not so certain that all truth is summed up in the borders of one house of worship. We can at times, though, be guilty of this ourselves. In us, it looks more like a weddedness to reason and fact. Oh, tidings of reason and fact. And eschewing anything about which there is no proof and no certainty. Regarding God, this might look like, without verifiable proof, God does not exist. However, in that line of thinking, you can't get away from positing a definition of God that you are disproving or unable to prove. What if your theory of God is wrong? What if you have defined the wrong thing? The long, dark, star-studded nights of Advent and winter are an invitation to wonder, an invitation into awe and mystery. Isn't it a miracle that we are of the same dust of the stars above? Maybe we are the created staring at the Creator after all. We cannot be bound so tightly to reason and literalism that we forget how to wonder. The transcendentalists, the ancient mystics of our religious movement, can provide us with an antidote. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle are equally related, the eternal one." He was a man who unabashedly wrote and spoke about his experiences of union and communion with the divine that is within and beyond every human heart. He even put forth the notion that reason and experiment prove it so. Sacred space, the space occupied by the divine, is all that is, was, and ever will be. Yet what we usually mean by sacred space are those places and moments that seem to take our breath away at one moment and return it at the next. When the astronauts of the Apollo in 1968 saw Earth from space for the first time, they were moved to use religious language and spoke emotionally of the Earth as if it were alive. Not just a collection of elements and physical forces, but closer to the ancient Greek concept of the goddess of Earth, named Gaia. The view they saw is one that continues to affect us all. Or today, we might remember that when the Hubble telescope pointed towards what we thought was nothing, what we had proven was nothing before, only darkness, we saw the traces of myriad galaxies that were not yet visible until that moment. In my own life, I've had these transcendent experiences most powerfully in a village in upstate New York, nestled in the Helderberg Mountains. On one side of that village is a cascading waterfall whose heights I longed to climb as a child. It is there that I learned the names of the constellations and to linger over and appreciate the doings of bugs, who are a miracle as well. It is there, sitting under the shade of a tree, that I first meditated and understood how the Buddha could remain in such a place for so long. It is there that I remember preaching in the congregation in the center of the village on the 75th anniversary of my grandparents' wedding in that very room. Not very far behind me, up the hill, lies a cemetery dotted by the graves of my ancestors, some with fancy markers, while my parents' grave has a simple sitting stone with 2 pine trees beside that are overgrown and in need of a trim. It is there that I first learned to walk with the mystery of death. If nothing else will, death has a way of opening us up to the mysteries of existence and non-existence. Where does the soul go? Where does love rest eternal? Many a humanist or atheist has asked me the following: can you not believe in God, but believe in ghosts? I always say my answer is yes, because you do. I remember teaching a class on humanism where most of those gathered believed in an isness after life as opposed to a nothingness. As a pastor, my office has borne witness to many, many people's experiences of being visited following a death, in a dream, in a vision, through storytelling, in the way that lights turn on and off, in a feeling of peace, in a knowing that a loved one was near and then no longer near, in a feeling of being led somewhere or to someone, and more. Is it real? Do you think it's possible? Do you think I'm crazy, some have asked? No, I don't. It is a real experience in that it is experienced as real. What aspects are really real is not mine to know. What I can testify to is the power and the beauty of these experiences. Sometimes these moments of openness to the presence of a beloved's love are so real that people are brought to an insight, an intuition, and a holy encounter that is life-changing. I remember the week that my father passed away. One of my closest friends was away in boarding school, but she decided to come back to visit. She said, I don't want to upset you, but I want to share a story with you. The day after your father passed away, I had a dream and he visited me. And she said, is it okay if I go on? And I said, yes. And she said, I couldn't hear him any words, but in this dream, he led me through your apartment into his den and kept pointing to a shelf. And so we decided to walk into my father's den. And she pointed, she said, this shelf right here. Well, right behind the books were tucked a birthday present for my brother, because my father died on my brother's birthday, and a second present for me, because they always gave the other one a lesser but symbol that we both mattered. I'll tell you, my brother William played Ultima 5 over and over and over again on the computer, and I loved that crystal fox and will do forever. Is it real? Did it really happen? Was it an intuition that took a whole day to reach her in boarding school and somehow their brains connected? Did he truly visit her after there was no more trace of him on earth? Will I ever know? Does it really matter at all? I can tell you that in my experience of being by the bedside of a number of people in their last days or on their last day, our exit from this world, like our entrance, is accompanied by mystery, by pain, by a willingness to open to something beyond our finite lives and to a presence of love. To be human is to be bound to the mysteries of the cycle of life and death and rebirth. For love is reborn every minute of our existence, even as it is also always departing. Even as much as science has revealed to us, there are always big questions that remain unanswered. The vastness of what we do not yet know unites us. What we do know is that we have finite lives and that we long for what is infinite, eternal, and of ultimate importance. We long to feel connected to and a part of its unfolding. In our circles, we might call it a spirit of love that transcends a particular theological stance. Whether we would name it being drawn to God or being drawn to a spirit of love that calls us to more than any of us are on our own, this is what draws us to this space. Paul Razor writes, theologian and religious scholar Richard R. Niebuhr calls religion a kind of ligature by which we bind ourselves to divinity, or that which bestows wholeness. What a great definition for God. A kind of ligature by which we bind ourselves to divinity or that which bestows wholeness, and by which we seek to bridge the distance that separates us from what is of supreme worth. We long to lead lives that matter and in which we feel we have made a difference. But how do you measure the immeasurable? How can we ever know that we have fulfilled or even reached for what love or life or wisdom would call us to do with our finite, precious days? Doubt will always be our companion on the journey of faith. Both are as close to us as our own breath. When it comes to the mystery of God and existence, we might accept that ultimate truth will never be summed up in one religion. It will always be beyond our ken. Perhaps that is why the mystics of different traditions sound so similar. The 9th century Persian Sufi Bayazid Bastami expressed his skepticism about the ability of religion to bring you to God. He wrote, "The thickest veils between man and Allah are the wise man's wisdom, the worshipper's worship, and the devotion of the devout. God is one and not divided among the pages of our separate sacred texts." Mystics spend their lives in search of communion with God, with love, with the sacred, and yet the search never ends, despite their intuition that God is always as near to us as our jugular vein. Rumi writes, "Why are you so enchanted by this world when a mine of gold lies within you? Open your eyes and come. Return to the root of your own soul." In the end, what matters as far as the mystery of God is how it moves us forward on the journey of life, including at life's end. I remember serving as a chaplain in a burn ICU where a man had been working underneath a car when it exploded. He survived, but as you can imagine, he was in the most precarious and painful condition. I visited with his wife, Elaine, daily, who prayed without ceasing. Her pastor came frequently and prayed with her, and so did I. Elaine told me that in her church, she was taught that God would answer her prayers if she prayed well enough. As her husband grew more and more gravely ill, I asked her, "Do you think God works that way?" I knew she found hope in being able to do something, and I do believe that prayer is powerful, but I was worried that if he passed away, Elaine would blame herself. As he moved closer and closer to death, I listened to her struggle with her theology and did my best to create a safe place for her to ask questions, for her to open to mystery and find her own answers. Our answers may not be the same to questions about theodicy, why bad things happen. Some answer this mystery with all things happen for a reason, while others don't. Personally, I don't believe in a God who chooses and sends good things for some and bad things for others as a matter of testing or strengthening or punishment or any other reason. However, I do believe that we human beings can move through those challenging experiences towards growth, towards insights, towards more abundant life. The greater the challenge or loss, the harder that may be. However, human beings learn, grow, and change through experience, and perhaps these creative impulses are a reflection of the divine within us. So, what do you believe about God? Is she immanent within you? Are they transcendent beyond you, or is he both within and beyond? If you believe that we can say more about what we don't now know about the mystery of God than what we do know, then you might be someone who follows the apophatic tradition, where God is wordless, imageless, and filled with wonder. In the end, what is important is that our beliefs help to nourish, sustain, and inspire us for the long, warm days of summer and the harsh, cold nights of winter. Our beliefs matter if they help us to lead lives grounded in love and to act in ways that repair and heal brokenness in whatever ways our particular gifts suit us to do. Perhaps you are like the mystic Emerson, who at times saw no distance between our actions and that of God's. He wrote, "If a person is at heart just, then insofar are they God. The safety of God, the immortality of God, the majesty of God do enter into that person with justice." So often we tell the story about how Emerson left the pulpit and went to live in the woods to encounter God. But as God appeared more and more to him in the form of justice, in the form of making a difference in the world beyond his cabin, he returned to church, for it was only in community that he felt we could make a powerful collective difference. Only together that our actions could be big enough to embody the divine. Whether you believe God exists or is a metaphor or poetry, may your movement towards what is holy, just, and true transform your life and our lives and our world for the better. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. and now in our going. May the light of love bless us and keep us. May it shine down upon us. May it be gracious unto us. May it radiate out from within us, and may it make all of us bearers of the light of hope and peace and joy and love. For this is the day that you and I are given. So let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace. Practice love. Amen.